Welcome, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon. Here it's already the afternoon, late afternoon. We are going to start, and I am really happy to welcome you in this new live demo about document management, where we are going to share with you an example of integration between Bonita and Sharepoint. So, Harris, welcome to this live demo.
Hello, thank you. I'm happy to be with you and with everybody online today.
Happy as well, Harris. So let's start now.
Well, let's go.
Okay. So today we are going to talk about document management. But why combining document management and BPM? That's a good question. We know that, for example, Sharepoint or Alfresco are a content management system that can handle documents, store them, manage them, but also manage basic workflows for documents. So why would we add a combination with BPM? It's because we are going to benefit from the best of both worlds. The first one is to benefit from the flexibility of content management features. As we said, manage the content of the document and its archiving, manage the collaboration and the versioning of those documents. But also, we are going to benefit from the flexibility on the management of the process itself, because what we can do with BPM is automate and optimize those business processes that handle documents and make sure that we can help the capacities of document management in the workflow itself. So we are going to manage as well the creation of documents based on data and then store them in the document management system that we are going to see with our example. So what is the benefit of this combination? We can see that we have many values and based on effectiveness and power. Because when you have big volumes of data and of files, it's better to use a content management system, but you can though benefit from the process management to make sure that they can flow throughout your process and to all the tasks and be updated and so on. You will benefit as well from the capacities of indexing and searching for contents. You are going to be able to define precise permissions for the content, especially, and make sure that you integrate all the softwares that are going to edit this content. So you improve the collaboration. Of course, in terms of legal content and legal files, if you integrate with BPM, electronic signature, a CMS, a content management system, and a BPM, you are going to be able to validate and certify those documents. So that's always very powerful if you think end-to-end automation. And technically, it's easy because this integration is easy thanks to APIs, and that's something we are going to see in our example. But before we start with the demo, let me just give you some examples of use cases and the way we can integrate them. First of all, most of the time when we use document management with BPM, it's to manage contracts, orders, validate reports, make sure that you can validate payment requests, official documents. And what you can do, many things: add, create, delete, archive those documents. You can do content consultation online. You can have multi-level validation. You can store those documents, archive them, but also have access to them to view them later. So you can do many things. You can also define usage rules, and this will be consistent between your document management system and your BPM. And how you are going to integrate them in different ways. First of all, with CMIS connector, which is a standard content management integration system connector. Then you can use web services connectors like SOAP or REST. Then you can define a REST API extension, especially with Bonita, you can use REST API extensions. Or finally, you could use custom widgets to integrate and view your documents directly from your user interface. So now we are going to take one example today, and that's the core of our demo that Harris is going to show you just afterwards. And this example is the example of the integration of Bonita with Sharepoint, where Bonita and Sharepoint are integrated together thanks to the REST connector. What we are going to do is create folders from Bonita to Sharepoint, so in Sharepoint, sorry, but Bonita is going to say, hey, Sharepoint, create folders for me. And then Bonita is going to push the documents to Sharepoint in the right folders. And that's what you are going to show us, Aris, now. I will give you the presenter role now.
Exactly. Thanks. I'll just provide you a very brief introduction about the use case. Great. So let me first, as I said, quickly explain the use case and what the demo will be about, besides the fact that we want to create and store documents in SharePoint. So we will stick with the simple procurement example case. I'll show you what the process looks like for the demo. For the sake of the demo, we really wanted to keep the process simple. The focus is really on the actions. We'll show you how you can do the integration using Bonita out-of-the-box REST connector. And before we can start that part, let me just very quickly explain that, of course, as with any kind of integration between the two systems, in this case, we talk about Bonita and third-party system that exposes its APIs. What you first need to take care of is, well, a couple of prerequisites. In the given third-party system, you need to make sure that you provided permissions for a user or the application that will be Bonita. So this is something that you need to take care of. And also make sure that you set up your API authentication and authorization properly. You're going to see that in the case of Office 365 integration, we're going to go through the Graph API. Very quickly, just to introduce the topic for those of you that are familiar with the Office 365 and Microsoft Cloud applications, it's going to be nothing new. For the others, let me just quickly say that what we wanted to show in this example, that we want to extend Microsoft 365 experience handling documents, but you can do the same thing with conversations, portals, timelines, and so on. And to do that, Microsoft exposes sort of a gateway that they call Graph. And this is what we will use from Bonita using our REST connector, and using the Graph API, we'll be able to manipulate these objects. So in our demo, we talk about handling folders or drive items and documents. Before you can do that, you need to make sure that in terms of the identity, Bonita will be able to have access, get authenticated and authorized to use the given APIs. Let's switch to the demo now. I'll quickly present the process itself. So I'm opening the Bonita Studio, in which you'll just quickly see the process diagram so that you can see what's the basic flow. So we have a requester doing the procurement request. After that, we're going to switch to the supplier side of the story. For the sake of the demo, I'll use only one account to make it simpler and easier. The idea is then to have suppliers propose and complete quotations, after which we will let the requester review the proposals, select the most suitable supplier, and after that, we're going to take care and let Bonita generate documents, so generate a quote request in both Word and PDF format, and upload them to SharePoint. As simple as that. So let me share my screen with the application itself. So we have a living application handling procurement requests. We'll start a new request. As I said, very simple forms. The requester can choose, describe the need and choose suitable suppliers. So for the need itself, we're gonna look for some office supplies. For that, we're gonna simply describe that we need some supplies for dispatching mail, print material, and supplies for recording meetings. And for that, the requester can choose upon suppliers that are already making part of our application. And from there, we can send a request. That is to say, we just created a new procurement request that's pending for quotations. Let me just quickly switch at this stage to our SharePoint in parallel, where we have a simple communication site. We have a dedicated folder within documents part that's named quote requests. The idea is each time we have a new procurement request to create a folder here. As you can see, I'm refreshing that just a few seconds ago, we created a new folder 1001 that corresponds to the procurement ID. So I'll get back to Bonita and then, as I said, on behalf of different suppliers, complete the quotation. So I'm not going to change the user. I'm just going to quickly provide some prices and descriptions, comments as different suppliers. Let me do the same thing for all three of them. We're going to say that our second supplier, Bartel PLC, is out of stock, so does not want to answer. And the third one will provide the best price ever. So at this stage, within the process, we'll have all the different proposals, and the idea is to let the requester be able to choose the most suitable and the best supplier, and from there accept the selected quotation. So as we said, very simple and standard process in Bonita. What's happening behind the scenes at this moment is that Bonita is taking care of generating, as I said, the quote request first of all in the Word format and then in the PDF format. As a result, we'll upload those documents to the newly created folder that corresponds to our procurement request. And you can see my SharePoint is set up in French, but you can see that a few seconds ago, we just created two new documents. I'll show them both. As I said, we're going to have a final document in the PDF format. The document itself took information from our process, a summary and description and supplier details. And same, we had also a Word document with the same information that you can also, if suitable, edit using your Microsoft Word online. How did we do that? Let me switch back to the studio and guide you quickly through the magic that operates behind the scenes. So we use our out-of-the-box REST connector. The first part, as I said, is always to make sure that you authenticate Bonita against the third-party system. So here we use a post connector that allows us to make a REST call to the authentication token service exposed by Azure AD that corresponds within which I have my SharePoint tenant, my instance of SharePoint, and make sure that you use the content type that corresponds as the body. At this stage, you need to submit 4 different parameters: grant type, so you're looking for client credentials, your own client ID, and client secret that will correspond to your own application. So you see, I left the values that you can see what it looks like, but this is what corresponds to my developer sandbox of SharePoint. And finally, scope, where you need to say that you want to grant access to certain part of graph. For simplicity, I use here the default settings for the entire graph API. Of course, you can fine tune those settings when you have your example. And then just make sure at the end of the REST wizard, I'll move on to the last part, that you can, when you get the response from Azure AD, that you get the JSON that you receive. We can simply use JSON Slurper and then parse the response, so the entire body that we received. And from there, we can simply take the access token that we will map and save into one process variable inside of my process. So Sharepoint token is a process variable. And then in the upcoming calls, I can simply use this token. And here's the first example. We want to create the folder, as I said. So for that, you need to make sure to call the proper URL, in which case, according to the proper documentation, you can find that you need to provide the drive item ID of your parent drive. And then you can specify also, if you want, you remember that we wanted to use a sub folder that's called quote requests, and we're going to use that as the parent folder. We're going to send a simple JSON file, and in the JSON file, we're going to provide the name of the folder that we want to create. I chose here to have it correspond to the case ID of our process so that we can more easily set up a reference. We create a folder, and then you can set up a rule saying that you want to rename in case of a conflict. And later on at the final step of our wizard, sorry, just before I forget, of course, for all the other calls, it's very important to add a header here that's named authorization that contains the bearer of for the authorization. And this was here you can just simply choose the Sharepoint token that we previously retrieved, you remember. And then at the last step of our wizard, I'm just gonna once again parse the response and look for the name of the folder, just to make sure that when we want to upload the files, we're gonna store this in yet another process variable so that we can more simply make sure to store documents in a proper folder. Then later on here in this step, we're using two standard connectors that Bonita proposes. The first one that allows to generate Word documents based on a template. Let me quickly show that you can prepare a Word or DocX or ODT template using simply Fusion fields. And these Fusion fields can be replaced, and this is what you set up here in the connector, so that for each Fusion field you provide a proper value. And this is where I map our process data to the connector. We're going to generate the Word document in a similar way. We convert it to PDF. So this is where Bonita can be handy to generate documents. And finally, in the same activity, we use two more connectors. First one that uploads the Word file, and the second one that will update the PDF file. To do that, just one notice, Microsoft exposes two different APIs. The first one that you can use for files that are smaller than 4 megabytes. For the others, you need to use another API where you open an upload session and then you can transfer file parts. So we're staying in the simple mode. We use a call to the API where in our quote request folders, in a subfolder that we just created, we want to upload a new file. Here's where you specify the name of the file that would be given to the uploaded file. I'm using once again quote request with the case ID. Beware of the proper extension. And as the payload, you can simply choose a document that was generated as part of your process. As simple as that. Make sure that you have the proper content type, which is application update stream. As simple as that. And don't forget the authorization once again. And at the end, just to show you, you have an option. You will receive different sort of outputs from the connector. What you can do, one of them is a status message that you receive from Sharepoint. You can save that value once again in a process variable, so that as Bonita administrator, in case of that something gets wrong, you can more easily see what happened, what message did you receive, whether it was a file uploaded or bad request or something like that. So it can help you debug and find out what happened. And the same thing, once again, for the PDF file, we use the same put file connector with the similar approach. So this is it. As you can see, rather simple in terms of the setup. Let me switch back to the presentation and wrap it up. So what we used is these three different Graph REST API methods. Sorry, the first one to create a folder. You can find easily all the details in the Graph REST API documentation of Microsoft online, of course, but I'm just highlighting these calls that we did. So one to create the folder, second one to upload files. And as I said, in case you have bigger files, you should go through a resumable upload by creating upload session. What are the benefits of such an approach? As you were able to see, I was using standard out-of-the-box REST connector of Bonitasoft, which means that over time, Bonitasoft is maintaining and taking care of its evolution and corrections if needed. I was able to reduce development time. You can see with wizards, it becomes rather handy to set up proper values instead of coding everything. And then as a follow-up, of course, we are just showing here a small example using Sharepoint. You can use the same approach for all Office 365 products. Once you get authenticated and you have proper permissions and settings on your 365 and Azure AD side, you can follow the same approach for OneDrive, Teams, or any other application. I'll just add another comment saying that you can also follow the same approach for any other third-party system that exposes a REST API in a similar fashion as we did in a demo. You can handle first the authentication part and then make subsequent calls throughout your process. As a conclusion, what we recommend is to externalize documents to a content management system. Some examples are Drupal, Fresco, Microsoft 365. It's a good practice because that way, not only that you can store documents outside of Bonita and make your Bonita setup and runtime lighter and easier, it's also good practice because Bonita, even though it handles documents, it cannot handle documents from with the same capacities. A content management system can provide advanced features for archiving, searching, metadata, and so on. So it's always a good practice to think to externalize your documents within your Bonita or BPM project. As you were able to see in the demo, Bonita can help you generate documents. So keep that in mind as well when you are implementing your validation or other processes. At a certain moment, you can let Bonita generate Word or PDF files that can contain or be your invoices, purchase orders, quote requests, contracts, or any other type of a document. And also, as you were able to see with this approach, we can put in place an easy integration using standard connectors with their wizards. For those of you that are with us today and want to go further on the same topic, just one hint in terms of the Bonita implementation. What can be handy and was not done in the demo is to be able to store your SharePoint folder URL in your business data model in one of your BDM objects. Why? Because once I finish this first process, if I want to have another process that follows up the quote request, such as procurement, purchase order, or invoicing or whatever, it can be handy to have a URL in my business object so that I can make a reference and get back and work on the same documents or add more documents in the end-to-end flow. And for those of you that don't have too much experience with SharePoint and Office 365, or those of you that want to have a simple development environment, you can, we'll share, of course, all the content after the demo, but you can set up and have a very quick and simple development environment containing all the applications 365. And it's really a simple approach for the first integration, as you can very quickly have everything in place and administer everything properly. When you're doing such an integration, just a small hint as well, most probably you're doing it already, but if you're not, it's always a good practice before you start BPM integration with the third-party system that you first of all do a Postman verification. Postman is a REST client. You can use, of course, similar other REST clients. It allows you first of all to make sure that the actions you want to do using REST API calls in third-party systems are properly configured, that all the permissions are there. Once you're fine with that, if you're doing a Microsoft integration, what can be handy as well is to go through a next step using their Graph Explorer, which is an online explorer tool, allowing you to more easily make calls to different REST APIs and save time, and also troubles when you're debugging some potential problems. So here it is. Delphine, up to you.
Yeah, thank you, Harris. That was really interesting. So now it's time for a question. The first one is, where is the best suitable place to have in a secure way, the Azure credentials and to keep them secrets in Bonita? So how do you configure that if you use Azure?
Sure, yeah. You're right. As you were able to see in the demo, we propose one way, which is once you make a call and you retrieve the token. I'll talk about first about the token part, because you need to make sure also to store that properly. I decided to put it in a process variable, because simply once the process instance is finished, the data will be also will disappear as well. So that can be an interesting option. Otherwise, you can also put it and use parameters. As for all the information that we saw that are required for the setup of the authentication call, such as client ID, client secret, you can use parameters, so process parameters, for one simple reason, because in Bonita you have different environments that you can define. So you can locally test with certain values, such as I'm doing here with my developer sandbox. And then when you gradually move towards your corporate production environment, you can let operation teams that are handling the production security aspects set up proper values for production environment, and those are the values that typically you as a developer might have inside of your Bonita studio. So parameters can be a good place, knowing also that of course you can use Bonita continuous delivery, which can help you automate the entire flow and make sure actually that the values of parameters are detached of your binaries of your processes, so that proper values can be assigned when you move from one environment to another.
Yeah, and this makes me switch to another question, which is it available in Bonita Community Edition? Because I saw that you talked about Bonita continuous delivery, so I can answer this question if you don't mind. So sure. Yes, everything has been built. First of all, the example that we have used is an example available in Bonitasoft Community GitHub and available in your Bonita Studio as well. So we will update it in a few days when all the webinars in French and Spanish have been on as well, to make sure that you can have access to this real example if you want to reuse it. So the REST connector is available in Bonita Community, but for example, the configuration on Azure, I don't think it's available in the community. And more than that, using Bonita continuous delivery, this is specific to enterprise. But the example and all the configuration we have done and the demo we have done today is made based on community and can be used in community and enterprise editions. Could you show us the permissions that are required to configure in SharePoint to do the communication between Bonita and SharePoint? Is it possible to show that now, or better?
I can answer it. I can answer it quickly, and then I'll let you explore further for a simple reason. I'll explain why. This is really an important topic. So first of all, this is why the question is here most probably. But first of all, you need to make sure that from your corporate security policy levels, the permissions that you are about to require or open on the SharePoint side or any other O365 is given by the administrator. So you need to make sure that what you require will be approved and will be put in place. You will find all these details on on one side Azure AD documentation. We'll send and share after these live demos, as Delphine said. We'll send also and share the project itself on GitHub, but we'll also prepare a written article with all the links where we explain how we basically, for the demo, how did we set up permissions, API authorizations, and everything on Azure AD and the SharePoint side. So we're going to share that in details. However, it's one possible approach. First of all, because as I said, permissions are per object level, where you can write or read certain permissions. To make it simple for the demo, we were working on a sandbox, so we allowed ourselves to have very wide permissions. What's always a good approach, and this is why I recommended and mentioned using a Graph Explorer. That's really a great tool, and this is where it can really help you. Let me see if I can quickly share this. At least this is where it can help you very quickly. Let me share my screen. Yeah, just checking. Yeah, the Graph Explorer is really a great tool, because once you connect with your given account that you want to use for development, each time you want to make a request, you will see here in the preview whether you have proper permissions or not. So first of all, it will list you all the necessary permissions, and this is how I propose to proceed, that you look for the proper resource that you want to call, whether it's a get, post, or put in order to do CRUD actions. You try to run it through Graph Explorer, and it will really list you one by one all the necessary permissions that you need to have if you want to perform the request. You can see in my case that in this case, most of them are consented, and I was able to receive a response correctly. At the very beginning, if you start from the initial setup and configuration, they really have the approach where everything is restrained. So this is where when you are doing calls one by one, you will see what are the necessary permissions. This is also where using the sandbox is a good approach, because you have a hand on that. You can simply consent and try and test it. And that with that approach, you'll be able one by one to identify what are the necessary permissions that you need to ask your administrator to set up for your corporate SharePoint installation. So I really, from my experience, propose to follow that as the approach. Use the Graph Explorer, be able to find out for different. You can see here, for example, some resources that you can use for SharePoint sites, lists, or if you want to handle users and any other types of objects. From there, you'll be able to see one by one, according to your use case, what are the permissions that you require, and then you can simply see whether you already have them or not. You can, if you are administrator with the given account, you can also consent to open those permissions, and then one by one you can move on through different API calls. I hope that helps and that answers the question. But always you're gonna need really to talk to your administrator who needs to open the permissions, unless you are the one. In which case, Graph is also a good friend to go down that way together.
Thank you, Aris. Another question. It's about the management of the document. To update or delete a document, do we need to create a process instance, or can we be done using the REST API directly?
We do, as for all the objects in Bonita, we do propose APIs. So there are APIs that can allow you to update the content of the document, for example, to put a new version of the document and so on. You can find them in our Java doc, as well as certain actions at the REST API level. For those that are not exposed through REST APIs, you can have your own REST API extensions. To this question, I always answer as well with something very important in mind, which is whether you want to trace all the changes or not. if you want to make sure at the end of the day who did a change to your document and at what step, at what time, and if you really want to trace all that down, and if it's important for you, then the best approach is really to do it through processes. This is the only way you can guarantee that anytime Delphine is about to change the quote request, we know that it was her and at what time she did it. Otherwise, if you're doing things through APIs, you will have a lower level of visibility. Of course, for certain use cases, it can be a good approach. So yeah, you need to make a choice. It's possible using APIs. Doing it with processes is always a most auditable and traceable approach. Sure.
Does Bonita make any kind of cleaning after uploading the document to a CMS?
As you're able to see in our example, what we are doing is we generate the documents in Bonita process, we upload them to Sharepoint in this case. If we talk about it in a generic way, you are doing all the actions. So once you uploaded the document, if there is no action from Bonita using a connector in a certain process where you will archive, delete, or handle the document in any other way, nothing will happen automatically. You have two approaches. Either have cleanup processes that you run regularly from Bonita, either as an action or an automated scheduled process. You can also have cleanup and archiving within your CMS according to the capacities that it might have. This is where we also said that externalizing documents to a CMS can provide you some more advanced options, such as archiving documents after a certain period, and so on and so on. Otherwise, from Bonita point of view, all of these actions should be intended and done through either processes or APIs.
A related question was, can we automate the cleanup process? But I think you answered.
You could have what we did here is it's a human action. So we have a requester that runs a procurement request, and then we upload the document. In a similar fashion, you can have an automated process either with a timer that starts at a given frequency, and then it uses either REST APIs, as we did here, to delete documents in a given folder. This is where you need to explore what are the APIs exposed by your given CMS, and be able what you can do, or you can just always do an externalized job, a cron job that does this in the CMS.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
While you're looking for the next question, I'll just add one more thing that talking about archiving documents, you should also do the same thing within Bonita. As for the data and all the other objects that you're handling in your processes, as long as you don't really specifically say that you want to purge them, they will remain in your archives. In Enterprise Edition, there are tools like purge tools, but for Community Edition, you need to take care of cleaning up your data, including documents as well.
Thank you very much, Haris. I think we reached the end of this live demo. I hope you all enjoyed this live demo. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, Haris, for being with us. It was really instructing, and I really liked it. Bye-bye. Thank you, Haris.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.